So here's my plan anyway. I got the right side arm back in the shop here, and I'm going to use this lift to try and lift this arm back up into place and get it bolted in. We'll try this out. I think it'll work. Got the arm positioned in place with the lift here, but now I got to sandwich that rear axle with the rollover bar and that arm. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this rollover bar lifted up and in place. And I got some new bolts for it. I can use those new bolts to sandwich everything together. Yeah, using this lift really worked out pretty nice. It made things pretty easy. A lot easier than taking it off. That was a little more difficult, but I didn't have the lift then, so gotta use what you got. So in working on getting the rollover bar mounted back on here, I was putting the new bolts in and getting it tightened down, and as you can see, there is a gap up in here because the rollover bar is hitting the axle here. So I can only assume that this was not a factory rollover bar equipped tractor, but I want to keep the rollover bar. So I think to combat this, I'm just going to put a spacer in here. And that way when this bolt gets tightened, it smashes against the spacer and doesn't put a bunch of stress right here on the axle and potentially crack that case, because I don't want to crack that. And I also want it to tighten evenly. So I found this piece of flat stock here. I think I'm going to cut that up. It's about the right thickness. So this should work pretty good. I think it's off a Woods mower. Nonetheless, I'm going to get that cut up and jam it in there and see how this works. Well, here's where we're at. I got the supply and return lines to the tank / loader arm plumbed back in. Ended up putting a new piece of hose with some new hose clamps on the one line, and then the other line was just converted at some point to a regular hydraulic hose. So I just tied it all back together. Now I just got to, you can see this must be the return line here. That's tied in. This line must go to here. Anyways, I got to get the loader back on so I can figure out where all these lines go to. But everything's solid, bolted up, and this thing's pretty much ready to stuff the loader back on the front. Here, I got to get these hydraulic cylinders put back into place. Just a pin here and a pin here. Obviously gonna need new grease. And then I just have to reconnect all the hydraulic lines to the block here. So I'm gonna get everything all cleaned up as best as I can. Get it connected, get the rams back in and connected as well. And then we'll have to fill up the reservoir. Without further ado, let's start connecting. Back in action. I got the alternator stuffed up in there, and my new wiring harness is all made. Pretty simple. I love using this automotive wire loom. It just really cleans things up, and well, you guys saw how bad it was before. This is much better. So anyway, this alternator is working out well. I got all my gauges tied in up here. Again, using that loom. And there's still some room for improvement under here, but I need to get this battery door cover and these side panels. I got the light switch. Maybe reuse these for reverse lights, I'm not sure. For now, the electrical system is done. I just gotta get this thing filled up with the forbidden fluid over there. Gotta use some of that forbidden yellow pail because I have a feeling this is gonna end up on the ground anyway, so I didn't wanna spend too much on the fluid. So let's go ahead and get this thing filled up and see if we can get some hydraulic action. So I got this thing filled up. I'm gonna turn it on, try and cycle the loader a little bit. It's gonna drain the fluid back down, I'm sure, because it's gotta fill up all these cylinders again. So let's turn it on and see if we can make anything work here. Alright, you got my first leak, so let's go figure that out. I know this is hard to see, but believe it or not, I actually forgot to tighten this one. Crazy, right? Probably forgot to tighten it because it was such a pain in the arse to do. Okay, that one's tight. Now, I just gotta figure out where every other leak is coming from. This one down here, it's like I didn't even try and tighten this. I guess I completely forgot this one. That's always good. Well, that's 2 down, I think. Well, I don't know what's not working. I guess I wasn't really paying attention. Obviously, these rams are going up. These look like they're not pressurized. They're just kind of falling down. So I'm going to assume we probably need a little more fluid in here. So I'm going to top it off and try and get this thing lifted up again. I just cannot get this bucket to curl. I'm not sure why that is. Well, I'm really smoking out the inside of the shop, so I guess I'm going to try and pull this guy outside and wrench on it a little bit out there where I'm not killing myself in this diesel smoke. So I'm back working on the Massey 30 today, and I have a theory here that the hydraulic oil that I filled this reservoir with is just a little bit too thin. The stuff I took out of it seemed a little bit thicker. I just think the viscosity might be too thin on this 10 weight oil that I put in there, and it's not functioning correctly. So I'm not a master in hydraulics by any means, but I'm going to try the cheapest thing I can think of and just drain out that 10 weight fluid and fill it with some heavier fluid. I got some ISO 46. I read the manual up and down on this unit, and it does not specifically list out what hydraulic oil should go in this reservoir. I'm just kind of guessing at this. We'll get this drained out and get some new oil in it. guess this thing takes a bit more oil than I thought it did. Well, I finally got this thing about drained out now. I got some new thread tape on the plug here. I'm going to go ahead and toss that back in. Well, the hydraulic reservoir is not quite filled all the way yet, but I'm going to go ahead and get this thing fired up and start working the hydraulics as I fill it the rest of the way. Well, this is one of the best parts about doing YouTube. I just could not figure out how to get this bucket to curl in. And I'm looking at everything here. I didn't take any pictures of this before I took it apart, this block here. But I did make a video. So I just went back on YouTube and watched the video, and lo and behold, I do not think these lines are connected to this block correctly. I actually think this one goes down here and this one comes up here. They're kind of crossed over. I connected them based on the way I thought they went. This looks like it would be correct, but apparently that's not the way it came apart. So I'm going to drain the fluid out enough to get these disconnected without making a huge mess, and reorient these, and I think that might fix our problem here. Well, I drained out approximately that much fluid, and I'm just gonna switch the orientation of the two that I believed are incorrect. Well, I'm pretty sure this is the orientation things go. It's quite a cluster up here, but that looks like how they came off in the video. So I'm gonna reconnect them just like that, fill the system back up, and hopefully we'll have some proper movement. Well, I've reconnected all the lines. They're all tight. I got the system all filled back up with the 46 weight hydraulic fluid, which apparently was not my issue in the first place. I just had the lines wrong, but you'd live and learn. So I'm going to cross my fingers here. I'm going to start this thing up, and hopefully this will work correctly. Apparently I knocked it into gear. Try that again. I'm going to put it in neutral this time. One year in the making, but I finally got the Massey Ferguson 30 industrial tractor back together and working again. So I bought this thing about almost exactly 1 year ago now, and I bought it with the intentions of I wanted to move some dirt. So I was able to find this on Marketplace, and I thought it was a pretty good deal. So I went ahead, picked it up, and I knew this thing needed a clutch, and that was the biggest flaw. Now it did run, but it had a lot of other minor issues. Part 1 and 2, I got it home, took the loader off, cleaned everything very well. I was able to get the tractor split in half then. I sent the flywheel out to get machined. I put a brand new clutch in it, and then I went through and did some odds and ends work on it to really clean it up and make it a very usable tractor. I'm gonna give you guys a tour of this thing. I'm gonna fire it up, and we're gonna move some dirt, because really that's what I bought this thing for. Now I am going to be putting this one up for sale because I bought a bigger and better piece of equipment for what I'm doing here, and I'll show you guys that. I think you'll really enjoy it. You guys saw everything about this Massey Ferguson. Now, it is not perfect. I did not go through every little thing on it. The power steering still leaks. I never did get around to fixing that oil pan, so it still has some JB Weld type of material on there. That's something the previous owner did, and I just never got around to. But everything functions on this tractor as it should. The 3-point works, the PTO works, the loader works flawlessly. I went through, I greased everything back up, got the tires all aired up. None of them actually really seemed to leak much at all. It was sitting for a year. I never checked the tire pressure when I got it, and they all still had at least 10 PSI in every tire. So I consider that pretty much good for my standards anyway. Yeah, this thing is a working tractor. It has got 9,000 hours on it, and it is, for the most part, a pretty loose tractor. Nothing on this tractor is tight, and nothing on it's new, but that's okay because I don't have a lot of money into it, and I never meant for this to be a restored piece of equipment. This is meant to be a working piece of equipment, and that's exactly what it's going to do. If not for me, hopefully for somebody else, it'll serve a very good purpose for them. Let me show you guys around this thing. I guess we'll shove it into some dirt, test it out, because what else are you gonna do? We'll move some dirt around. So the side panels and the battery door panel were missing when I purchased this tractor. Now you can find replacement ones. They weren't the most expensive thing in the world, but they also weren't cheap enough to where I felt like it was necessary to buy them. Again, not going for a full restore on this tractor, just wanted something that works. So I did not end up replacing those. I obviously went through, greased all the pins. I mean, some of these are pretty wallered out, but it's kind of to be expected on a tractor of this age with this many hours. I got new bolts in the pins for the bucket there. Everything else I just went through and greased up. You can see this bucket has its fair share of usage marks and welds and that sort of thing. That exhaust came out really nice. I'm pretty pleased with that. I still do not have the correct cover for the air cleaner, just something I was not able to find. On the rear end of the machine here, it's got a PTO and a 3-point both working correctly. There is some aux hydraulic hookups here, which I have not tested out because I do not have any equipment that requires it. Not a bad looking tractor for 50 years old. And since I'm sure you guys are going to ask, that's the replacement for that tractor.